Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sam Solomon, and this is Signal Tower. We've got a fantastic show today. My guest is Jennifer Dewalt. She started programming with virtually no knowledge and built 180 websites in 180 days to teach herself how to program. Since then, she's been featured in Fast Company, Ars Technica, and several other publications. Jennifer is now building a product called Yum Hacker. It's similar to Yelp, but instead focuses on friends and foodies that you follow for your restaurant recommendations. In this interview, we'll talk about her situation before the project and how she persevered for 6 months. This is going to be a great show, and if this is your first time listening to Signal Tower, I'd encourage you to listen until the end. Also, if you're a founder, aspiring developer, a designer, go ahead and subscribe at signaltower.co. I'll focus on bringing you great interviews each week. Okay, I think that's it. Let's get started. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so, kind of tell us a little bit to begin with. Who are you? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. So my background is in fine art. I did mostly sculptures and video, performance art, all sorts of different things. And I guess maybe 5 years ago or so, I started getting involved in technology projects, doing like iPhone apps and websites, where I was mostly doing just like wireframing and product development stuff, non-technical things.
Right.
And I started getting really excited about how we use technology to communicate, because actually my artwork was heavily based on how exploring ideas of how people communicate and project their identity. So as smartphones and iPhone apps and social media started growing, I got more and more interested in the technology and how we as people are using technology to communicate more. So from there, at first I was just interested in using the technology as art, but I started getting more and more interested in actually being able to build things. And so I decided I wanted to learn how to code. Gotcha. So I really, though I worked on projects and knew sort of like what was going on, I never had done any coding before.
Right.
Poked around a couple of tutorials once in a while, never got very far. But I decided, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to take the time out of my life and focus exclusively on learning to code. So since I didn't really know where to start, I figured I'd better start small, and
right.
That's where the idea for 180 websites came from.
That's fantastic. Well, I've got to ask, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
That's a great question. I actually wanted to be a neurobiologist, and I entered undergrad as a biology major, intending to do research in neurobiology. And
what happened with that?
I'd always wanted to do it, and when I got to college, it just didn't feel right anymore for some reason, and I don't have a really good explanation, but something it wasn't fulfilling, I guess.
I understand. I changed majors a million times. When I went to college, I thought I was going to be an architect. So things definitely change.
Yeah.
Well, so let's actually talk a little bit more about the 180 websites project. So I guess kind of what was that week like up until you started that project?
Intense. So the whole website project is actually kind of housed in a Rails app, and so I knew I was going to want to do Rails later in the project. I wasn't going to do it initially, so I spent the week leading up to it kind of setting in the structure to be able to do it later in the project. And so I was fortunate enough to have a friend give me some notes on how he set up his website, and so I worked through those and pounding my head against the desk, not knowing anything that was going on, but I managed to get it working.
Well, so I guess kind of why Rails? How were you talking to other people during that week, trying to figure out what do I need to build on? How did you come to that conclusion?
So like I said, I've worked on some projects in the past, and the last project I worked on was a social news website built in Rails. And so my friends, I live in San Francisco, I'm surrounded by startup culture. So my friends, I have lots of coder friends, and most of them are Rails coders. So it seemed like an easy fit. So I also spent some time looking around at different websites and what technologies they were using. And so the ones that I thought were most interesting to me personally, a lot of them were using Rails. So between those two things, it sort of seemed like a natural fit.
That's fair. And so, did you leave your job? You said you wanted to focus completely on this. Like what? I guess as far as that goes, like what happened?
So I saved up some money. I knew I was going to stop. I was not going to work, and so I saved up money and kind of arranged my life so that I could focus 100% on doing this project. And so I organized for about a year, basically, is what I planned for, to take time off for a year. So I live with somebody, so that helps, obviously. But yeah, that's the story.
All right, and I guess so. Specifically, the 180 websites in 180 days. You know, kind of where did that concept come from? Why 180 days? Why 180 websites? I mean, it's catchy, but how did that concept originate?
So lots of people, when they want to learn to code, lots of my friends would just kind of dove headfirst and tackled a big website, maybe a big Rails app or something. But most of them also had some experience beforehand, and whereas I really didn't know anything about anything as far as coding goes. So I knew I wanted to do. I just decided, okay, I'm going to do a couple of small projects first, just to kind of get my feet wet, see what, figure out all this. Like I didn't really even know HTML or CSS or anything. So I figured I better start there. And so as I was thinking about this process of learning to code, I started thinking, well, I'll do a couple of these like little short projects, and then sort of said, oh, well, maybe I'll make them all like little one-day projects. And then joking around with a friend who was like, well, how many of those could you do? How many websites can you think of? And so we started joking around, and then eventually it seemed like, well, this is actually a really great idea, because I can build a little bit more every day, and then keep working my way through the stack until I get to be able to have touched a lot of different technologies. And so that, and also I wasn't really sure where this whole coding thing was going to take me. I didn't know if I was going to want to be an artist who was using code, if I wanted to like go into startup life, or go and be a software engineer at Google, or even what part of the stack I would be interested in. So that seemed like a really nice way to touch like as many crazy things as possible. Yeah. So why 180? In 3 months seemed too short, and a year was way too long.
That's fair. Now tell us a little bit about those first few days and those very first few websites that you built. What were, early on, what were what was the day-to-day like?
So, sort of a side note on this story, on Saturday night, I started on Monday, April 1st. On Saturday night, I was finishing up getting all the last bits and pieces of the structure in place to get going. And my old laptop, 2007 MacBook Pro, just died.
Oh no!
And so everything's on there, ready to rock and roll. I'm all like excited to like push everything up and move everything forward on day one, and it just totally crapped out. So major stress. Managed to Sunday borrow another laptop, not a MacBook but a PC, and get everything on there and work, and ordered a new computer for myself, which arrived early in the week. So that was really stressful and really exciting way to start things. But luckily everything worked out okay. I managed to get everything up and running, and got a little extra practice, and and things worked out fine. And early in the week I got my shiny new computer. So
you were pretty serious about getting set, like this is the day, and obviously you went, obviously you're persistent. You built, 180 websites. What did you have any other sort of ground rules that you kind of laid down for yourself?
So the rules of the project were one website every day. I had to write a blog post about it, and then and everything had to be publicly available on GitHub. So those are the three main rules of the project. And at first I thought I would have to be like do all all this like discipline, or like maybe I'd be able to like do, you know, schedule in like coding for this many hours and reading for this many hours and studying like, you know, tutorial stuff for this many hours. And it turned out none of that actually happened. It was all coding all the time and just learn as I go, and about, you know, on average 10 hours a day of just like beating my head into the keyboard until magic happened. And a lot of days it was magic. Definitely in the early days, a lot of times I had no idea what was going on. You know, I was looking at my code going like, I don't know why this works, but that's okay. So, the project really started to drive itself, especially as time went along. You know, it came at one point where it was like I couldn't imagine not coding a website for it in a day.
It just became a habit.
Yeah, it was just like total habit. It was like, okay, time to go do the website coding now. So it was pretty weird when the project was over and I didn't have to go into work and build a website in a day, and it was sort of like, what do I do now?
And did you were you at a co-working space, or did you work from home? Like what, you know, where did you go each day?
I got a co-working space. Early on, when I was just starting to think about whether or not I wanted to learn to code, I realized that if I did any sort of big learning project in my house, I would probably go insane. And so I definitely wanted to make sure I had a place where I was working, and then a place where I could like call home and not have to deal with any distractions, and you know, and also when I'm working, not have to worry about, oh, is the laundry done, or man, the dishes need to be washed. And
right.
So it was great, and one of the best things I did in the project, actually, because yeah, definitely would have been really hard to sit at my dining room table every day and just crank away.
I understand. You talked about, you know, putting all your code on GitHub and, you know, kind of putting it out in the open. You could have done this project and just kept it all locally on your computer. Why did you decide to do it out in the open?
For a couple of reasons. One is it definitely gave me a sense of responsibility toward the project, which is a nice motivator when you're feeling sick or hungover or just generally not into it, and to have this like public display, this public record of what you're doing, and it definitely helps you to stay committed to it. I also, you know, publishing code publicly is part of coding, and so I wanted to, one, just be able to take part in that, but also get over the fear of being wrong, basically, and that there's a lot of this like anxiety built up on like, I can't put anything out there if it's broken, or what if I look silly when I type, you know, a function that looks like this. And by putting it out every day, you know, you quickly realize actually nobody cares that much about you and your code, unless, you know, they're trying to use it, of course, but nobody cares that much, and it's not that big a deal, and that it's okay to be wrong. I mean, for me, I mean, coding is a lot about being wrong a lot of the time, right?
You have to make mistakes.
You have to make mistakes, or you don't make any progress. So I think those were the two big things.
I guess, you know, how did you, you know, so these projects took like all day for you, right? I guess how did you, you know, budget your time, you know, for these? Like some of these projects are pretty elaborate. You know, how did you say, I know I can get this done in a day? Like,
so early in the project, the things were easy enough that like, even if it took me all day, I knew I could get something done. And then as the project went on, I got pretty good at just kind of intuitively knowing what I could do. I wasn't always right. There were definitely days where it would be like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and I go, oh my goodness, this is never going to get done. I have to switch. Like this whole day just it's done. But yeah, definitely it sort of just became a little bit intuitive about like, okay, this will take me, you know, takes me about 3 hours to get the bare minimum up. It takes this amount of time to like do styling for something this complicated. So it was sort of interesting, actually. Definitely at the end of the project, it was very much like get into work, get out at the same time, get into work, get out at the same time. But yeah, definitely some days I totally blew it.
And so those projects that you'd be working on, and it'd be, you know, 8 o'clock at night, Did you ever go back to them, or like what happened with those?
Um, Usually, if I got to that point, there was something fundamentally wrong in how I had approached the problem. So
Huh.
I would kind of keep the code aside, thinking, okay, this is an idea that I want to pursue again. A lot of times, by the time I got back around to it, I wasn't really interested in the problem anymore. So there's a lot of half-started projects that I might go back to again in the future and like actually re-explore because I didn't go back to them in the project. A couple of them, a couple of ideas I did go back to. For instance, when I'd been working in Rails for a while and I was interested in doing some real-time stuff, and I didn't feel like I was quite ready to move into Node yet. So I started doing some research on the event machine for Rails and to do a real-time Twitter app. And I approached that probably 2 or 3 different times and never got anywhere with it till the very end. I tackled Node, and then I was finally able to put it together how we're feeling.
So you know a pretty incredible number of frameworks. If you know Rails, Node, I guess what other frameworks or languages do you know?
I did Rails, so I know a little bit of Ruby. I'm getting better. I'm actually working on a Rails project right now, which is helping with that.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. But JavaScript is definitely like my foundation right now. So I did some Backbone, and again, I'm actually working on Backbone more now. And lots of little different libraries in JavaScript. I tried to stay away from a lot of libraries because I wanted to kind of roll my own as much as possible, but obviously jQuery is kind of indispensable, so things like that. And then, yeah, at the end I did Node using Express. So touched on tons of different things. Really excited to kind of dig in a little bit deeper on all of them.
And I guess kind of why did you decide, you like JavaScript the best?
Well, it's the first one I touched, really. Starting at the very beginning of the project, it was HTML and CSS, just get some links on a screen. Then I started throwing in a little bit more JavaScript, and so that was how I learned code, was through JavaScript. And now it's powerful. So it was really exciting for me to do all this different stuff. I got really into using the canvas element, which is an HTML5 thing, which allowed me to do tons and tons of JavaScript coding and not have to worry about CSS and HTML. So it was really exciting to be able to like create using just this one file of a few commands, basically. So I haven't done a whole lot of coding outside of the structure of building a website. So I have to do more of that in order to kind of get a better handle on using other languages. But
Cool. The concepts are incredibly elaborate. I guess where did you come up with how did you know what you were going to build each day? Like you've got 180 kind of real, and they're really different things. There's like a window that opens, and as you open it more, it gets louder. Yeah, I guess where did all these concepts come? Where did the inspiration for these concepts come from?
So before the project started, I made a list of every crazy idea I could think of, good, bad, ridiculous, nonsensical, and just put them all on a list. And I got to, I think, maybe like 70 ideas, and I kept that list going throughout the project. So that was always something I could like fall back on and use if I was feeling like kind of uncreative or whatever.
Right.
But as the project went on, I found myself getting inspired by what I was already working on. So I might be working on a concept in JavaScript, and then I would say I would see something as I was researching it and say, oh, that's a really interesting idea. And so like the most direct example of that would be like, okay, I want to learn more about the geolocation API in JavaScript, and so like what can I use? What kind of idea would use that concept so that we can explore it? So yeah, mostly it was just kind of like this crazy self-driven inspiration train, I guess.
Fair enough. The challenges with this project, what I guess were your biggest challenges? What were some of those other roadblocks that you ran into?
Let's see. About every 30 days, I kind of would get crazy, I guess. So,
In what way?
um, I would, it was like every 30 days, I would have a couple of days where I'd feel like totally uncreative and not really in tune with the project anymore and get kind of grumpy. And I'd really struggle with either getting an idea for a website or just executing on something. And in my mind, I'd be like, oh no, this is it. It's all over. End of the project. This is it. No more ideas. And then usually I would take a day that I would do something really easy and simple and kind of take a break from all the crazy thinking. And then wake up the next day and be like raring to go. And I'd just be excited about a new concept and I would just take it off and running. So that was a really weird thing, especially the first time that kind of experience washed over me, where I just felt really overwhelmed and not in tune with the project. Towards the end, it was like, oh, okay, it's been about 30 days. I guess this is this time again. I wonder what my next interest will be.
Now let's kind of transition into talking about, kind of what happened after the project. So what happened on day 181?
Well, so I mentioned briefly, I started using Node at the very end of the project. So that required me to write my own server, which was awesome because I learned so much more than Rails was giving me. Rails can be kind of magical sometimes, I feel like. And so when I wrote my server, I was like, oh, I understand how this all works now. But the side effect of that is you have to handle all of that yourself, all the nice things that Rails handles. So sanitizing and all sorts of stuff. And my last website allowed, it was like a real-time chat room-ish type thing. So you could type, anybody who was on the site could type anything in and it would actually rain down the screen. And my game plan was take the day off. I ended on a Friday, so I partied on Friday night, take the day off on Saturday, Sunday go in and like really dial in that server because I knew there were probably going to be some problems with it going forward. And and then I was planning on writing a nice big, like, I'm done blog post later in the week. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but interestingly, somebody posted my very last blog post that just said I was finished, basically, on Hacker News, which totally blew up. And I came home from an evening of dinner and the movies to find my website like just blowing up. It's like crashed, the server's crashing, everything's going crazy. People are writing all sorts of obscenities and ridiculousness. And it was kind of crazy. So I had to spend Saturday night, a few hours on Saturday night, going in and just trying to hack together a fix until like I could actually attend to it more seriously on Sunday. So that was a little bit stressful. But the partying was nice.
Yeah. Well, you had to go out with a bang, right?
Yeah, it's part of the story, right? And it's something I'll always remember coming home going like, oh my goodness, this is not good.
Yeah. So I guess kind of since day 180 and 181 and beyond, kind of what have you been working on? What's next for you?
So I took some time off, took vacation, got to reconnect with all my friends who I ignored for 180 days. And then recently started a new website. I wanted to tackle a longer term, more serious project. So I started working on a website called Yum Hacker, which is a restaurant discovery website, sort of like a Yelp for foodies, where you can endorse restaurants and follow friends or other people and see what restaurants they endorse. So you can find new restaurants that hopefully will be more tailored to you than maybe Yelp reviews might be. So I know here in San Francisco, Yelp's really awesome, but for restaurants, everything tends to be kind of rated the same, and so it's really hard to dig through the reviews and find something that's good for you. And so I find that my friends give me the best restaurant recommendations, so it seemed like a good idea for a little website.
And what's that? Are you using Node for that?
No, it's a Rails backend. I'm actually using Rails API, and then as an API, and then Backbone on the front end. So pretty standard, but definitely giving me an opportunity to try a lot of new things. I touched on Backbone during the 180 websites project, but I didn't have enough time to really digest it. It's a pretty steep learning curve, I feel like. So now I'm actually getting to play with it, and I really like it. It's really powerful. So.
Well, cool. You know, I'm sure I'm not the first person to come ask you to talk. I'm wondering, you know, are you going to be speaking at any conferences or anything anytime soon?
I don't have anything set right now. I've been really focused on getting Yumhacker out, done and out the door, because I really wanted to make sure I cemented the knowledge that I had gained through the 180 project. So I've been really heads down on that. Hopefully when it's finished, I'll be able to take another breather and go out and explore a little bit more.
Looking back on all these projects you've put together, I guess, do you have any favorites?
I do. I mentioned How We're Feeling, the real-time Twitter app. I really like that one. It's, like I said, it's something I tried to do several times during the project, and I was able to finish it and actually put it together on J178, I think. So that app hooks into the Twitter streaming API using Node, and then there's a series of disks on the screen associated with different feelings, negative and positive feelings, like happy or angry. And as tweets come in with hashtags corresponding to any of those feelings, they get tallied, they'll flash on the screen, and then I calculate a positivity rating. So how happy are people? And so it's really interesting. You can go on there. It's almost, there's some psychological study that says people are on average 78% happy or something like that. It's always 78%, but on, you know, like Monday morning it always dips down, and Friday night it gets up above 80. So that's pretty interesting. You can kind of watch the mood of Twitter in real time. I also really like had another API app which hooks into Instagram. Sorry. And someone's called Here, and that one, when you go, it grabs recent photos on Instagram from around you. And so that's a really interesting, like, you kind of get a visual perspective of your place in the world just through the pictures on Instagram. So that was interesting to actually put together to make. As I was working on it throughout the day, I started getting pictures in on my app around lunchtime, and so I see like people's food and lunch, and then in midday it's like pets, and then there was a Giants baseball game that evening, so I kind of watched San Francisco go from work into like Giants party mode. People drink beer, and all dressed in orange and black. So that was pretty interesting to watch. I like watched San Francisco's day go by while building it, so that was pretty cool.
That's great. You've definitely got some fantastic projects. I wonder, you know, I guess, are there any questions? We're kind of reaching the end of the interview now, but I'm curious if there are any questions that you think I should have asked you, but I didn't.
Oh, that's a good question.
Is there topics or anything that we need to talk about, or do you think we should talk about, or questions I should have asked?
Let's see. No, I don't. I guess not. The one thing that people ask me a lot is like, how did I do it, right?
And that's the last question below that I actually have. That's the last one.
Yeah. So, and it's always this very vague question of like, just kind of like not really comprehending even the question itself. But the the thing is that I started from virtually no knowledge, and I sat down and said, I just need to get something on the screen. And getting over that overwhelming feeling of not knowing anything or not understanding is really hard. And so this carried throughout the entire project of just get something small working and go from there. Was really important and definitely helped me get over that overwhelming feeling of complete lostness. And so throughout the project, this build small, keep going mantra was in my head, and which goes for not just getting something on the screen, but also, you don't necessarily need to understand everything to get stuff working. And when you're learning, it's important to just keep moving forward, because as you move forward, you'll get that understanding. It'll come eventually. So, but it's really easy to get super tied up and trying to figure out all the details of how everything works, which can end up being very discouraging because you just might not be ready to understand it yet. So.
Absolutely. Well, Jennifer, thank you for joining us. Where can people follow you?
My website, jenniferdewalt.com. Right now still has all of the 180 websites on it, so you can go check them all out there. I'm on Twitter, Jennifer Dewalt, and GitHub, Jen Dewalt.
All right. Well, once again, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, that's our show today. If you had one takeaway from my interview with Jennifer, I hope it's that if you're trying to learn how to program, you should focus on quantity much more than quality early on. I know that's kind of hard, because I'm a perfectionist and I always want to make everything the best I can. But really, it's much more important to get that experience under your belt. And I'd encourage you to build a bunch of small little websites, even if you're not going on a 180-day grind like Jennifer is. All right, if you liked the show, if you hated the show, reach out to me. If you're interested in having someone specifically on the show, let me know. If you're not subscribed, go to signaltower.co and sign up. Thanks for watching.